Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us. We are doing it every single week, sometimes twice a week, spanning the wide world of women's football. This week, we are back home, stateside, talking a little NWSL midweek, after dark, whatever you want to call it. All the hashtags, throw them all in there. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen at ITC_pod on X. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Seattle Reign beat reporter, Manchester City beat reporter, part-time, working his way up to full-time, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling great, buddy. It's a hell of a commute out there to Manchester. I will say it took me a little bit to recover, but, I'm not scared of it. I'm happy to be home. Caught the Reign current match on Wednesday, as we will discuss, which means I attended 3 football matches, I think, in the span of like 4 days. So that's a pretty good ratio in my view. I think it's about what I'd like to do for a living. Not quite there yet, but yeah, feeling absolutely fantastic. So good, in fact, I might as well just crack this baby now.
Let's go. I'm going to join you.
Oh, let's go.
No load management here at the ITC.
You know what? A little drink, talking some football, never hurt anybody.
Not in the slightest. All right. Let's kick things off. Mr. Grant Engel, where does Drake go from here? No, I'm just kidding. Where do you want to get started?
Let's go to Houston. Home of Jay Prince. Speaking of Drake, not sure how he's absorbing this, by the way. But we'll skip past that. That's another podcast, I think.
He might now watch the show, so I think we're good.
Should be fine. Let's talk about Gotham FC. I figure we'll go in order of the Wednesday slate, the midweek slate for the NWSL. Houston -0, Gotham FC 1. Gotham FC picks up their second consecutive win. They're making their way back up the table on the strength of a Lynn Williams goal early in the match, and then they just kind of held on from there. I just want to talk a little bit about the big picture with Gotham. I felt like that sequence leading up to the goal and the substitutions that they made later at like around the 76th minute looked exactly how we expected Gotham to look when they made those high-profile signings. I thought Crystal Dunn played really well in the midfield. Jenna Neiswanger was serving in great passes into dangerous areas, starting the offense from the back line. Esther looked like a good number 9. She was kind of getting back, being a part of the build-up play. Lynn Williams looked like your expert winger out there causing chaos and, of course, getting the goal. And then when they brought on that trio of subs, they showed off their incredible depth. They bring on Rose Lavelle, Bruninia, and Yasmin Ryan. And they still have that depth even after losing Midge Purse to a season-ending injury. So it's taking a little while, but it feels like the Gotham Death Machine is kind of starting to get ramped up here.
I feel like Death Machine might be a little strong.
Maybe.
So we're still a little early. I'm just looking at some stats here. Obviously, the 7 matches in, they're still at 5 goals for, 5 goals against 7 matches. So let's work our way up to Death Machine.
That's fair.
Their 3 wins on the season, all of the 1-0 variety. So, they're not exactly blowing the doors off. But I wouldn't be surprised. I didn't go back and check this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't trotted out the same lineup in any of these matches, in any of the 7 matches.
Yeah.
And, a championship team, a team with championship DNA, they might just be treating this as, like a little bit of an extended preseason, saying, hey, we know where we want to be when it comes time. And as long as we're trending in that direction, I think we're happy. Yeah. So I think results-wise, what are they? Okay, 2 wins in a row, and then just the 1 loss in their last 5.
Yep.
I want to say that was probably their best performance of the season.
Yeah.
Obviously, midweek. So, the team with the depth has a big time advantage, right?
Yeah.
Houston's not the deepest side, but when you've got to go 3 matches in 8 days or 9 days and 2 matches in 4 or 5 days, that depth plays a huge factor. But I think still, they're on the road. Gotham is traveling to Houston, and solid performance end to end. I think they looked dangerous, not all the way clinical in the final third, but I think they had the match pretty well in control. So yeah, I think I'd rank that pretty close to maybe their best performance this season.
Yeah, that's a great point. And calling it like an extended preseason, I think that all makes a lot of sense for them, kind of figuring some stuff out as they go along. Thinking about our newly adopted Houston Dash.
Yep.
The attack looks a little aimless, I think. They've scored 3 goals in their past 5 matches.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the bright side is they only needed one of those to get a draw against top of the table Kansas City in that kind of wild weather delay game last week. I was in England for that one, but I caught some of it. I also flipped it on NWSL, and it was just showing the rainy pitch and saying matches in a weather delay. And then I went back and checked an hour later, and it was the same view with a pitch. And I was like, "Oh wait, did it freeze? Let me just do it again." But nope, so match was still in a weather delay. But yeah, it just felt like with Houston, a lot of time passing the ball around in their own half of the field, and Diana Ordonez just like kind of has nowhere to go with the ball, and she's their most threatening scorer. She has 3 goals on the season, their leading scorer. It just didn't feel like she had anywhere to go in this one.
Yeah, I was kind of looking to Alozier to, try to provide a little bit more on the other side, but it kind of felt like it was always like a 1-on-4 or 1-on-5.
Exactly.
Either whoever had the ball was trying to make something happen with it. Just not a lot of organization, not a lot of support on offense.
Yep.
They did get a pretty decent chance late-ish in the match.
Oh yeah,
they weren't able to convert, but yeah, definitely gonna have to figure some stuff out in Houston. The current approach not working. They look to be trending towards maybe like a bottom 2, bottom 3 team based on, I think, what we're seeing.
That's a good point about the chance they did have. I mean, it would have been pretty devastating for Gotham. But, that's why Gotham signed Anna Katrin Berger. That was a great kick save that she made. I think that was Houston's Canadian center back, Sophie Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
She takes the ball from a bad giveaway by Delaney Sheehan. Just a real heavy touch, like near her own 18. Ball falls to Schmidt, and Berger with the kick save. Saw plenty of those at Chelsea Football Club. So she preserved the 3 points for the Bats. Yep. And, they're sitting in playoff position. And, yeah, Houston trending the wrong direction. But we're not giving up that easily on our Dash. They can turn the corner.
Yeah, definitely not. No Tarsiana yet. We've talked a lot about Gotham maybe looking out of rhythm. I thought it was interesting on the goal that they did score, the one where Neiswanger gets it into Ella Stevens. Mm-hmm. She gets a crack at it. The rebound finds Lynn Williams, and she just kind of knocks it in. On that play, if you watch Esther, she's sort of like in the mix and then kind of floating back a little bit while the ball is kind of pinging around, and at the same time drawing some defensive attention because it did look like, wow, Lynn Williams just standing. Like, she just felt like there was 2 players that were mostly unmarked, and that ends up being the difference in the game. So I'm kind of expecting, after a really slow start from that Gotham side, things starting to gel a little bit as they start to build some of that chemistry. And I think that play really kind of encapsulated maybe what we could be expecting just as they get into a rhythm collectively as a squad.
Yeah, for sure. And they're going to need it because next up, the Bats travel to San Diego to take on last year's Shield winners. So we have the title holders versus the Shield winners, a replay of the Challenge Cup for an opening match of this season in the primetime Sunday match on ION. So I'll be tuned into that.
I like it.
Even with San Diego, it'll be interesting, even if you just want to watch San Diego, to see who's going to play for them. I think that's going to be interesting in itself. And what's next for the old Houston Dash? They're also going to California for a Sunday match. They'll be playing Angel City FC. Angel City, of course, they've won 3 of their last 4. So the tough challenges continue for Houston. But in the Chaos League, if Houston wins that match 1-0 or wins it 2-1, are we even allowed to be that surprised?
I mean, I think it'd be a bit of a surprise, going to Angel City. Obviously, like, I might not have been super surprised if they drew Gotham at home or even squeaked out a 1-0 win. Obviously, the chances were there. But you do look at the shot count. Gotham 19, Houston 3.
That's tough
to win that way. And Angel City, they're on their revenge tour, trying to make me look bad after I kind of called them out and had them in my either bottom or second to bottom tier. So shout out to them for starting to get cooking.
That's fair. Well, shout out to you for motivating them. That's the lens I choose to see it through.
That's right. They're letting their haters be their motivators. All right, let's go ahead. Where do you want to go from here?
Well, I think next match on the docket, if I could be self-involved, Seattle Reign 0, Kansas City Current 0. A couple chances in there early on in the 9th minute. DiBernardo hits an absolute screamer that was for sure going in. And Reign backup keeper, Laurel Ivy, made a diving save to punch it over the bar. I get the feeling we'll probably be talking about Laurel Ivy a few times as we cover this
Mm-hmm.
game. Massive reason why the match ended up being 0-0. But I want to float something to you. It's a 0-0 draw at home against the team that's at the top of the table. I feel like Seattle got what they wanted in this match. In the first half, KC only had that one big chance, and they had 4 shots on target. And they were able to stop Temwa Chewinga from like running onto the ball with a full head of steam. It felt like that was priority one for them. And, DiBernardo's her great shot attempt, it came outside the 18. Felt like most of her chances were coming away from the goal. So I know people, they can refer to it as struggle ball or parking the bus, which I don't deny any of those allegations. But is it fair to say that if you're Seattle and you get a 0-0 draw at home, you should kind of be psyched about that?
I definitely agree. I mean, obviously, you want the 3 points if you can get them, but
Sure.
you're totally outmatched in this one as well. I think the shot count here, a little bit of the same. This one
Yeah.
felt a lot closer though, 19-5.
Yep.
Current outshot Seattle, and then 5-1 shots on target. Michelle Cooper also had a laser in the first half that
Oh, yeah.
Ivory had to deal with. She's a handful. So,
She looks great.
yeah, she looks really good. I think you got to be really enthused if you're the Reign. And I think one thing they did against Chewinga, and we talked about this a few weeks back, was kind of take away her angles.
Yes.
It was the notion of like, okay, well, speed, you can contend with speed. If you say, I'm just going to go there and not let you beat me just by taking a ridiculously overcompensating angle. I thought Seattle was great from that standpoint, just taking that away, and just keeping Chewinga in front of them, quick to double, whenever she was in a dangerous spot. No Alana Cook. So, I mean, they had that stacked against them. And yeah, Ivory, unreal performance. I mean, I think that's
Yep.
like a all-star level performance in a big game, in a tough match against an offense that's cooking. No Bia on the other side. So that is going to take a little bit of the sting out of the current attack. But I thought Seattle did pretty well when they were on the ball to kind of keep KC honest. And I think that's how they were able to get out of there with a draw.
Yeah. Great call out with Bia. Like, obviously, you lose a lot when she's not out there, but they still had to contend with Chewinga, Lavager, and DiBernardo.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dabinia comes on later in the match.
Yeah.
I'm also glad you mentioned that Alana Cook, she's kind of a late scratch, just hours before the match. And Laura Harvey talked about it in the post-game press conference. They basically had to call upon Shea Holmes and be like, okay, you're going to be one of our 2 center backs against one of the best offenses in the league. Go out there and do it. And she did. I thought Shea Holmes played really well. You're totally right about them taking out the angles. It just felt like they were also able to, even like with a real lack of shots, they didn't have a shot on target in the second half. All their shots on target, all their shots, I believe. You can fact check me live while I'm doing this, but okay, pardon me. 2 total shots in the second half. None of them on target for Seattle Reign. Hard to score that way. But they weren't particularly interested in scoring. They were just interested in stopping Kansas City from scoring. They kept Chewinga, they cut off her angles, like you said, but it felt like they made her play in areas that were like just less dangerous. So it's like, yeah, you can hold the ball, but as long as we're just not getting shots fired at us for 5 minutes straight, then we can deal with that. Like, Kansas City had a lot of attacking moments, but Kansas City never really got out on like big counterattacks or like big transition attacks, which we know that's almost where they're even more deadly than just coming at you straight on in build-up play. So it felt like that was a big part of the game plan.
When you think about it from Seattle's standpoint, it didn't feel like any of those Seattle attacks featured more than 3 or 4 players like in an advanced position. So I think they were just like, we're not going to commit people forward. We know we're not going to kind of score this way. So I really respect the game plan from Seattle's standpoint. You need points. You need not to lose matches. You need to kind of like protect home field. And they probably feel pretty good about that result, if I had to imagine. Just because at the number 9, that, like that kind of will strike some fear in the opposing teams. Seattle just doesn't have that right now.
Right.
But everywhere else, they're super solid. Like, there's no real super weak points of that team. And that's definitely a result you can build on. So I feel like if you're Seattle, it doesn't matter who's coming to town, doesn't matter where you have to go, who you have to play. You kind of feel like, hey, we can hang with every single team in the league on any given day. So that's kind of what a result like this is able to deliver.
Totally agree, man. And, Kansas City came in there to play physical. You mentioned Michelle Cooper. She had a couple of moments there where she was just smashing into
Oh my God.
different Rain players. And, they play fast and they play physical, but that is part of the DNA of the Seattle Rain Football Club, especially under Laura Harvey. And so I felt like they kind of relished that challenge. I, of course, attended the post-game press conference and asked Laura Harvey in the most artful way I could. I just kind of looked at her and said, Laura, Chewinga's been a world beater all season. How did you slow her down today? Because I was still kind of in a state of like, I can't believe she didn't beat us,
Yeah.
or beat the Rain. Pardon me, not us. What's that? And Harvey had a little bit of a smirk and said, we had a very specific game plan to slow down Chewinga. And she called out Phoebe McClernand, particularly, who was playing left back,
Excellent.
who had several key moments where she was like cutting off those angles, like you said, but not afraid to go in there and slide and just get the ball out of bounds and just don't let this thing become a track meet.
Mm-hmm.
And Harvey specifically pointed out Shea Holmes and McClernand and kind of helping with that effort. The first word out of her mouth before she answered my questions, another journalist asked Laura Harvey about her impressions from the match, and Laura Harvey just goes gritty, which I just loved.
That's excellent.
And you could tell that she was just like, okay, they're going to come into Lumen Field in Seattle and try to bully us. Not tonight. Like, it doesn't matter if this is our second match in 4 days, 5 days, whatever it is. We'll play physical right there with you.
That's really illuminating. Like when I hear you say Laura Harvey says, hey, we came in with a game plan, that basically to me says we knew that this game needed to be played on our terms.
Yeah.
And I think this game was absolutely played on Seattle's terms.
Yep.
And I think that it's all part of the same recipe, and we got that same good result for a team that some people root for.
Right. I mean, other people around me in my neighborhood, obviously, yes. I live 10-minute bus ride from the stadium, plenty of Rain fans running around. I observe them as a journalist.
Yep.
Down the middle.
Straight down the biker. So you had Laura Harvey in the hot seat.
Of course.
What else did you learn in the post-match press conference?
So Laurel Ivory, we talked about her incredible match, was the player of the match. As soon as it was announced in the press box that Laurel Ivory was the player of the match, everybody in there just went, yeah, duh. like everybody pretty much knew what time it was. So Ivory was at the press conference. I mean, she took a couple shots in there, fighting for the ball. Had to make some diving saves, as we talked about. When asked about the physical play, Ivory just kind of shrugged and said, we needed to get points, and quote, if you take some hits, then you take some hits, end quote, which I thought was such a great attitude about it.
I just want to say real quick, Laurel Ivory, the word that I had in my notes that I want to kind of make sure I hit, her instincts, like instinctive, her instincts were off the charts.
100%.
I thought she was just so impressive. She just seemed to know where everything was going to be coming from. Even that one play where she fumbled, where she comes out, she catches it, one of her defenders kind of knocks it out of her hands with her head. Like even on that play, it was the right read, and she was still able to recover. Ivory, I was just very, very impressed. I'm like, this is probably a starting goalkeeper in this league.
Looks like it.
Somewhere. So shout out to her. Excellent game.
And Sofia Huerta, she joined Ivory in the press conference. She talked about like a level of desperation after they get a win in the opening match of the season, then they lose 5 straight. And Huerta said, quote, right now, I'm just thinking points, end quote, from every match that they play. She had actually kind of looked around, a funny moment where Huerta said, I don't think I've ever lost 5 games in a row. And then looked at their media relations person, was like, you'll have to look that up. But I don't think we've ever lost 5 in a row since I've been here. So they knew it was getting scary hours pretty early in the season, dropping 5 in a row. Now they have a win and a draw, climbing back up. They're sitting at 11th on the table right now, just a few points out of playoff position, trying to get things back on track. But they head south just a little ways to take on those Portland Thorns, play their 3rd match in about 9 calendar days. And I think it's going to be a tall order for the Reign down there.
Yeah, I think so. Portland's playing really well
Yeah.
right now. Another team that found their groove or is finding their groove. I think Sophie Smith is looking really good, not only as a scorer,
Yes.
but also playmaking,
Yep.
which is it's just going to take that team, that offense to another level. So
Yep.
if that's something that she can really add to her game, like for real, that makes her just extremely, extremely dangerous. And that team is pretty stacked, pretty nice roster.
Yeah.
Probably like top third of the league with regards to just straight talent.
100%. So I'm very interested to see how that one goes. I mean, parking the bus and playing physical at home worked against Kansas City. If I had to guess, we're probably going to see more of the same down in Portland. So we'll see how it works out. But Kansas City, they head home to take on the North Carolina Courage in a battle to determine what city or state has the best barbecue and
Mm.
a very important place on the table as well. So North Carolina is coming off of 2 straight losses. You got to think they are desperate for a result. So I think we might be in for a banger in that one.
The one thing I was going to say about this Casey Current North Carolina Courage matchup, and I think Portland as well, and I mentioned Angel City earlier, we always have to keep in mind this is a long season.
Yeah.
We talk about like November, like when this thing's going to be over. I think we're going to see a lot of runs. I think we're going to see a lot of losing streaks and skids and slides and, sort of like middling play. And I think we're going to see a lot of up and down. A team like Angel City, team like Portland, very slow starts. And then you look at a team, like Bay FC. I think they had a couple wins early, but then you zoom out, they've lost 6 matches. They've lost 6 of 8.
Yeah.
And they're still kind of dangerous on any given day. The Courage, I think, are in real trouble of kind of sliding, and then maybe we need to kind of recontextualize some of those early results. But at the end of the day, we got to just kind of keep in mind this is a really long season. I don't think that these results that we're seeing today are going to be any kind of really great predictors for what we might see in the playoffs, except for the Pride that are just clearly obviously going to be there, kind of all the way through.
Of
Talk
course.
about that later. Anything else you want to hit? Seattle KC?
I think that covered it. I really like your synopsis of it's a long season. There's going to be a lot of movement up and down the table. I would love to see one of those graphs, one of those graphics of just like the teams moving from week to week. I think that'll be very interesting to see by the time November rolls around.
Oh my God, yeah. I don't quite have the technical chops to put that together, but it'll be a fun homework assignment. So I'll give it a shot.
I'm sure we'll find it somewhere on Al Gore's internet. I'm sure we're not the first people to think of that.
I believe that. Let's scoot ahead to the third and final NWSL Wednesday night, midweek, after dark action. San Diego Wave hosting the Utah Royals. I want to start with San Diego. Interesting personnel, interesting lineup that they trotted out. Not sure if that's a lineup we've seen this season. I have to double check that. What was your main takeaway from this one?
I think it's safe to say that with this 2-0 victory, the San Diego Wave are just keeping their heads above water. They are currently weathering this choppy ocean. They're searching for fair winds and following seas once they get their stars back on the pitch. All right, that's enough water jokes. But what I'm saying is they got a lot of great players who have not been able to play the last couple of matches, and they needed a win. They had the best player on the field. I think Ali Sentnor is great. We'll talk about her. But Jaden Shaw is the best player on the pitch last night. She looked like it from pretty much her entire time on the pitch. They needed that, and with a 2-0 win, they get themselves on the right side of goal differential. They're now +1.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the most impressive win that you're going to see, but I'll say, if I could thread the needle, I think it's a championship type win in the sense of we don't have all our players. It's a different kind of style that we're going to have to play, but we just found a way and we just got it done.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to look at it from the San Diego perspective. Because you look at the lineup: no Alex Morgan, Naomi Gurma, Abby Dowkemper, Sophia Jakobsen, who's been good for them. Savannah McCaskill, she doesn't come on until the 86th.
Yeah.
At that point, the results probably no longer in the balance. And that's one of the things, that's probably my biggest takeaway from this week's midweek action. The team with the depth dominated. It's just such a freaking crazy advantage to be like, all right, we'll not have 4 or 5 of our key players, or the players that we bring on are super high quality, could start for other clubs.
Yeah.
And then you have a team like Utah who's just got like all of their players in there. They've got an Amandine and Henri out there trying to kind of keep up, and they're just throwing everything they can. Stats wise, I think this one was pretty even. So each team managed 9 shots. Obviously, San Diego earns the penalty off a handball that was manufactured by 16-year-old Kimi Ascanio, who looks like a real player.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes when you've got a teenager out there, like they're really kind of like treading lightly and kind of like running out on their tippy toes. No, Ascanio's out there playing a real ball.
Mm-hmm.
She's not afraid to mix it up, and she creates that handball and that PK for Jaden Shaw to put the Wave up 1. But I agree with your point. I mean, a very losable or drawable game.
Yeah.
Even though they're at home, it's a short week. Wonky results happen. But credit to San Diego, they take care of business and take all 3 points.
You raise a great point about Ascanio, because you think about a young player like that, and like we talk about Lily Johannes over at Ajax, where it's just like you're on a roster with a bunch of dogs out there.
Yeah.
So what choice do you have than to go out and play confident and play strong? Like, you are on an elite team. You're on the Shield winners. And so, like, you're not going to go out there and tiptoe around. I love the way you put that, because there's no way she sees the field if she doesn't play with that kind of confidence, because she wouldn't be able to show it in training. And you hit on this too. I think you're 100% right. You look at Utah on the other side. I understand they had a club before and the club is returning, but there wasn't a franchise there. There wasn't a club for a couple years. So they just don't have like a pedigree. They don't have like an infrastructure almost of like, okay, this is the way we play. Now, I don't want to bang on them too much, because they can hang their hat on Ali Sentnor. They have a foundational player, and some expansion franchises, it takes them a while to even get that. So I think if you're Utah, I don't think you should be totally down about this. It's just these are the breaks in your first year in a league. In most cases, like obviously you have like the Las Vegas Knights in hockey, or like, we talked about Bay FC looks super dangerous this year. It's going to happen every once in a while. But most of the time, if you are an expansion team, I'm going to break out another great sports cliche. Sometimes you have to learn how to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it looks like it's going to be that kind of year for Utah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually really like how they play.
Yeah.
I think they're aggressive. I mentioned they were even on shots against the Wave. Each team managed 9. Utah just kind of didn't have the quality to kind of finish. But I think Monahan looked, pretty dangerous. Mm-hmm. She had that one cross into Pogarch that she put onto the bar, that could have easily, made this a completely different match.
Oh, yeah.
Sentnor had a cross in that got kind of fumbled, I think, by Betfort, but just a beautiful ball across. I continue to think that they're going to be dangerous. Yeah. I think they're kind of missing some of the quality, like that last action. But I have a little bit of a wild prediction here. Maybe not so wild, but, I'd love to put my predicting hat on.
Let's go.
I'm going to go out and I'm going to say that the 2024 Utah Royals finish ahead of fellow expansion team Bay FC this season.
All right. They're 2 points behind them right now and 4 behind them in goal differential. I like that they're 4 behind them in goal differential, and they've only scored 5 goals. And Bay FC has scored 13 goals this season. Scoring, not the problem for Bay FC. Turns out stopping the other team has been a bit of an issue. I like it. I know only two points separate them. I think that's a pretty juicy prediction there, my man. I like your spirit. Houston and Utah, 2 teams sitting at the absolute bottom of the table. They've stolen your heart a little bit, and I respect that.
Utah specifically, and maybe this kind of comes from Amy Rodriguez, they just have a little bit of a nasty streak, which I like. Like they just feel like they deserve to be out there. They feel like they deserve to be up a goal on everybody, like no matter how they're playing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like their play. Houston's a little bit, I think you called them aimless, or maybe their attack aimless.
Yeah.
They've got to get some stuff sorted out. I think Utah, though, once they develop some chemistry, I think they're going to be able to put some results together. I still think they're probably outside of the playoff mix.
Sure.
But I don't know. I just like it. I think, NBA, obviously I'm a Miami Heat guy, Heat culture.
Of course.
You already know what time it is. I think the Royals have a little bit of that, and Sentnor also is a little bit of a dog too.
For sure.
She is happy to kind of split a double team, she'll kind of like nudge you out of the, she's not tiptoeing either. She's going. She's a gunner.
Yep.
Lori Lindsay actually mentioned something on the telecast where she's like, well, this Utah team really kind of needs a leader. Ali Sentnor, she's still a rookie, a young player. It kind of was like overlooking this potential. But I actually think the leader is going to be Sentnor. Like in the way that she plays, her skill level. I think if this team adopts her personality, that's nothing but good. And then again, another shout out to the legend Lori Lindsay. Slow start. She didn't drop her first touch tight till the 21st minute, but totally cooking after that. So, Triple L, Lori Lindsay, the legend. Shout out to you. We're always watching. We're always taking notes here at the ITC.
Absolutely. I love that idea as Sentnor as the leader. I mentioned, when we first started talking about this match that Jaden Shaw is the best player on the field. Probably not if you ask Ali Sentnor. I think that Sentnor steps on the field and goes, no, I'm probably the best player out here. History be damned. Shaw's USWNT accolades be damned. I don't think Sentnor believes that for a second. I think that she immediately walks on there and goes, no, I'll win the game. Everybody follow me. And I love that. You bring up heat culture. I'll allude to it again. You could be an expansion franchise and not have that kind of player.
Mm-hmm.
And those are sad times, Bubba. So for the Utah Royals supporters, you got one. So show up, cheer them on. And I think that she's going to develop. And now if she becomes your best player, your culture setter, your captain, now we're really talking about something like building a foundation around her.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, if you fast forward maybe a couple of years, you could kind of see like a Chicago Red Stars parallel with Mal Swanson, and like kind of how she's like sort of like the focal point and a little bit of the emotional focal point as well.
I love that.
One-person offense when needed. I think Sentnor could absolutely be that kind of difference maker. She's just awesome. I mean, I'm like I'll say Utah's pulled ahead of old Houston in the emotional power rankings for your boy. So I will be locked in this weekend on the Royals again. Real quick, though, you mentioned who you thought was the best player in the field, Jaden Shaw. That pass to Doniak for the goal, I tried to do the math on it. It was roughly 30 yards, not counting the diagonal nature of it. So first she makes the interception, just a quick turn, and just a slicing pass, dissects two defenders. Doniak doesn't even have to get a touch on it. She's just able to just run right onto it. Right as she enters the box, a one-timer that it's just easy as pie. Jaden Shaw continues to be just a phenomenal player, like as high of an upside as you can imagine for a player that young.
For sure. Cool as you like from Doniak. Really like the finish from her. But she had a responsibility to do that because the pass was so great. It's like when you juke somebody out of their shoes in basketball. Like, you just got to make the shot. Or like,
got to knock it down.
LeBron throws you the perfect pass in the corner. You're like, okay, knock this down because that was too beautiful. So Shaw looks like a world beater. We're going to see her heavily in the Olympics, as we should. And she's going to have to, depending on how long some of these injuries carry on for the Wave, she's going to need to put in some performances like that. Her penalty kick, too, easy money. That was a shotgun blast into the back of the right side of the net. Just absolutely drilled it. And, that's why she's the star. That's why she's the rising star. Like, you have to look at her and be like, okay, we're hopping on your back for this one. Like you said, no Morgan, no Jakobsen. Now it helped. I think Maria Sanchez, that added support is going to help.
Yeah.
Thought it was interesting that Sanchez played on the right as a left-footed player. So she kind of played with those angles of like, okay, I'm going to run in now with my left hand. Like, I'm not worried as much about sending in crosses. I'm going to come in and try to hit some shots. I think she spent a little time moving around, as Sanchez is one to do. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that in the comments. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting look to put Sanchez on the right, especially of my oversimplification of a few weeks of just play her at left wing. I'm glad Casey Stoney, didn't just blanket take my advice on that because I thought it was an interesting look. But yeah, if you have Sanchez and you have Shaw out there, in the words that another NBA reference, in the words of Tom Thibodeau, we have enough. We have enough to win. And I think Casey Stoney probably felt the same way.
Yeah, Sanchez looked really good in spots too.
Oh, yeah.
She's still definitely settling in. She didn't look totally. She looked kind of like how Jakobsen looked the first couple matches, where you're just like, oh, this
Right.
player's going to be interesting, but they seem to be playing on a different team, a different stadium as the rest.
Yep.
But I think once they kind of like all click into place, I think this team could be dangerous. I mean, I was also pretty low on this Wave team, just kind of not being that moved, by some of those early season performances.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see it falling into place a little bit if they can put the whole thing together. I would say pretty good night of NWSL football. I think I'm somewhere in the 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10 range across the 3 matches. I think pretty chalk. I think we saw the deeper teams carry the day, but still some interesting moments, some interesting takeaways. I'm really kind of enjoying just the fact that we do get this midweek action. It kind of hits at the right time.
Yeah.
Like the weekend is so action packed, and then it's like, all right, Monday is like, oh my God, like a little bit of coming down from the weekend and trying to process everything that we saw. And Wednesday's like the perfect point in the week to just kind of pull us back in.
Yep.
Little appetizer, a couple tapas, just to kind of keep us satiated as we get into the following weekend. But I don't know. I was happy with the football.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I think the surprise result is Seattle scratching a draw out of KC. It was an interesting 0-0 draw. So, like, what more can you ask for? You got a couple goals in the other matches. And yeah, helps you get through the work week a little bit and then still have a lot to look forward to in the weekend.
100%. All right, man. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I do. I think I'd like to introduce a new segment.
Okay.
And I want to call this segment Straight Red Card. For when people are just out here acting wild and we're skipping right past the caution.
Hit them with it.
Get out of here. And now I want to go to the cesspool that is twitter.com. But in our corner of the internet, I think it is much less of a cesspool. I think the folks we follow genuinely seem like nice people. We try to make sure we put that positive energy back out in the world. But I saw something that I thought is deserving of a straight red card. And obviously, even as unbiased as we are, it's not from us. There have been moments where we perhaps might deserve a straight red card. Like, for instance, me putting together a team that I would think could beat the Spanish national team and not including CGH. I believe I would have deserved a straight red card for that. That's in the past. It was a mistake by me. Whatever. At any rate, the National Women's Soccer League official Twitter account put out their April best 11. And it's a good squad. A lot of excellent players on this squad. But I looked at it, and some people might guess, the Into the Channel podcast at ITC_pod on Twitter is operated by both Dino and me. But I'll let the audience imagine who may have tweeted this. And I quote, I guess top of the table, 5 wins in a row, an MVP candidate, and a couple of certified legends are not enough to get any Orlando Pride players on here. Shrugging emoji.
Unacceptable. Straight red card. Go take a shower. NWSL Twitter account. Get out of here. Get out of here. I mean, I understand that it's April.
Sure.
Right? So maybe a couple, Bonda results and stat lines that aren't included in there. But I don't know. Summer Yates, I think she was top of the league in expected goals and expected assisted goals coming into last week. I mean, Marta, she's got a game winner. She also notched a goal to kind of like get an early season draw.
Bangers.
Angelina, Carriabello. There's some real players on this Orlando side. I mean, you can't really be stringing together these kind of results and not have stellar play pretty much up and down the roster.
Yep.
Would have liked to see at least one player recognized, but I don't know. NWSL on Twitter, suffice it to say, you've been warned. You don't want to accumulate a second straight red card. Might end up in an unfollow, or even worse, maybe we try to report you or something. I'm not sure what for, but I mean, I think what you did was egregious enough. So I think we have a pretty strong case.
This content is offensive to me. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I saw it. I got a good LOL out of it. I loved your spirit, not to be confused with the club in Washington. I love the pride that you take in your squad. Yeah, I mean, you got a real argument. Like, come on, what are we doing here? Like, this is one of the top teams, and I understand. Like, Bonda didn't come on until late. She's the best player in the league.
Yeah.
She's the best player in the league. So, I mean, she should probably be in the best 11. I mean, call me crazy. And it's the March-April best 11. And we're only sitting on May 9th as we sit here today. So, like, she was scoring goals in April. Am I totally making that up?
I think there might be one match that would have fallen into May. Played in 4 matches, started 3 matches, and she's got 4 goals and 2 assists.
Yeah, come on, man. What are we doing?
They've won 5 in a row.
Yeah.
I think I think she's a pretty good player, I would say. And you mentioned the people that follow us. Shout out to all of our community members on Twitter and YouTube. We had a conversation pretty early in the season talking about Temu Chawinga as an MVP candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, apologies, I should have had this on deck, but hopefully if you hear this, you know who you are. Somebody in the comment section was like, no, it's actually Bia.
Yep.
And I think we saw it in that rain match.
Yeah.
No Bia looked like a different kind of attack.
100%.
So shout out to that person on the money. Just another proof point that this is probably the smartest women's soccer, women's football audience, I think, in the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. To the friends of the pod, I appreciate you guys supporting, always dropping knowledge in the comments. So, yeah, I just needed to get that out there. Straight Red, NWSL Twitter. Come on, you're cruising toward a suspension if you accumulate too many of these. Let's make sure we're watching the pride and making sure that we get these players on there. I mean, it would take something drastic for Banda to not be on the May starting 11. So I don't even want to consider that a possibility by the time we get there.
Yeah, and she better not be the only one. I'll leave it at that.
There we go.
All right, man. I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, just plain being the smartest women's football fans on the internet. We appreciate you. And remember, like if you liked, and subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen, at ITC_pod on X. A big thank you to my co-host as well for continuing to traverse the globe, looking for scoops, holding these players, holding these coaches, holding these managers accountable at these press conferences, not letting anybody off the hook. Mr. Grant Engel, you're the man. I appreciate you.
Likewise, buddy. It's a tough job to go sit in the press box and watch some of these matches. I will say the plight of any sports journalist, it is fucking freezing in these press boxes. They are just cranking the air way down or way up, depending on whatever way you look at it. No matter how you slice it, it's too cold in these press boxes. But maybe I shouldn't complain about these type of things. Probably find a way to anyway. But I will never complain about you guys rocking with us. We have another great weekend of football coming up. Fixtures are coming thick and fast, as they like to say. Keep rocking with us, and we will see you guys next time.